Welcome, everyone, to Blood and Iron Dead Man's Hand. Tonight is a rather special episode, as, while we might be running a bit late from the usual start time, we have the lovely Shriek. And Shriek is on his own tonight, pursuing some things that may have gotten a little bit sidetracked lately with the recent goings on with the court, with the recent goings on with the different members of the coterie. He's boots on the ground, learning all that there is to know about what's going on in his domain. So much so that he's actually in the process of marching straight from sipping a moment on his herd to a very specific Ventru. A very specific Ventru that's been tasked with something that no other in the domain could potentially do. Aside from maybe Dorian. And that is keep an eye on a specific doctor. A doctor who ran a blood bank, who has been seen with some very suspicious individuals. So perhaps Jade Kaufman has some interesting tales about this doctor to inform our very beautiful Nosferatu about. So Shriek, tell us a little bit about your walk and what is on your mind as you are walking to Jade's house. What are your thoughts going into this?
Well, at this point, I feel like I'm woke up extremely late today. Trying to come out of torpor's a bitch, especially with half your ribs hanging.
Yeah, it's something about 10:30.
Warning signs. You know, I've been warned about this kind of shit before. It ends up turning into a case where I am just trying to end up figuring out how the hell to end up making it work out. I'm dressed a little unusually. Usually I enjoy my little bit of things a little bit tight, but tonight's a lot more baggy, hoodies and what have you. Mostly to end up stopping people from realize that I have a lot of open wounds ready to leak out all over the place. Thankfully, keeping hidden is a specialty amongst the Nosferatu. And, well, as a cameraman, I'm used to being outside of frame. Nothing new there.
Although you do tend to get a little bitter about it from time to time.
Well, why shouldn't I be? You see on how hard I work?
Indeed.
Let's get something straight, okay? Ironically. We're going to end up having some points where things are never going to end up working out. Now, I get that, okay? But I have never been coterie material, okay? Coteries are a alliance of convenience, or assignment in the case of the Camarilla, in most cases. And so I am acquiescing unto the request of my dearest prince.
As the coterie hasn't been disbanded, as far as you know.
Well, I'm sure somebody would be celebrating if it was. Honestly, I think sometimes they end up keeping me here just to end up keeping the memoir as a lodestone than anything else. See, I was given a little bit of advice by Miss Moore, my sire, the one who made me into this freak. Because she understands one thing about me. It's a trait that she carries very much. I'm a lone operator. I'm a lone wolf. And if you suddenly become part of a pack, it tends to chafe a bit. But there's ways around it. Me, for instance, I don't walk side by side with my coterie. I orbit around them. I do the things solo that they need done and try and end up getting things going in that regard. And that's kind of what I'm doing tonight. Just orbiting around. And there's a few things that come to mind. First things first, we're going to see the Blue Blood Miss Call.
Ah, yes. The one who was meant to keep an eye on the good doctor. A good, kind doctor. What was his name again?
I think I actually have that written down.
I was actually testing to see if you remember.
Dr. Cohen, I believe.
No, not Dr. Cohen.
Oh, no, Dr. Olson.
Yep.
Dr. Olson. Hey, look, I have old notes.
Hey, look at that. Yes, Dr. Olson. The one who was running the blood clinic in your domain for a good portion of time, until it got blown up, of course. Now with the good doctor out of a job, well, it was time to keep an eye on him, see what pursuits he might be pursuing.
Well, my ongoing theory is that he has ties to our dear Primogen, knowingly or unknowingly. See, our Primogen, I know, is heavily involved in the blood trade. The, well, wonderful little delivery service we have going on here, known as the circulatory system. We also end up knowing that he ends up providing blood to the prince, specifically his favorite kind, vampire blood. He's a goddamn Diablerist, and in my working theory, the purge of the Anarchs was really him just restocking the pantry. And I have seen that pantry. So, with that in mind, that gives our dear Primogen a lot of leverage over the prince. Enough
Indeed.
to end up being able to sway much, I suspect, but enough to end up being able to end up getting to, well, prominence.
Getting a little bit of what he wants.
And he just took the entirety of Arlington without a fight. See, the fight, this isn't an anarch thing. Okay, anarchs will fight over territory, and you want to take territory, you muscle them out. It's that simple. Here, we got to play the game. But I'm not a stranger to it, and I'm very good at it. So, let's go and see what there is to find out, Miss Kaufman.
You have arrived at the home in which that she has made abundantly clear, as you have broken into this place several times, that this is her haven of choice, a sentimental piece, something left behind by a sire who sadly no longer exists. I wonder what happened to him.
Got on the wrong side of it all. Say, when you're a part of when you are suspected of being part of the anarch movement, there can't be any chances made. Understandably so. Let's not get it twisted, okay? I may not like the Camarilla as it currently stands, if only on who's currently running shit. But I'm not stupid enough to end up thinking that the Anarchs handle things better. Hell, the Anarchs don't even have the traditions. Outside of Masquerade, everything's permitted. And you can only imagine what kind of monster that makes when you let a thing that's compelled by their beast suddenly off the leash. So,
Especially when that beast is so near the forefront. As some are becoming witness to now, in their own minds. Those errant thoughts shriek of becoming more and more hard to resist. Those desires to wreck, destroy, devour, consume. And occasionally
all,
that thirst for knowledge, secrets, the unknown.
all it takes is directing it. You don't fight your instincts, you direct them. You figure it out. That's the balancing point. It's you end up getting by. I know I'm a monster. I'm not gonna pretend I'm not. But I'm also keenly aware that that instinct also wants me gone. That little bit of humanity, and yes, I am still in some ways human. That keeps it all on the leash. If anything is needed right now, it's a strong camarilla out here, and we're not getting that in Arlington. But seasons are a changing. So I think my fabulous self is going to end up going to the back door of Miss Kaufman's house and do something very, very unusual. Almost shocking.
Do tell.
I'm going to knock.
Very unusual for you.
Well, usually I'd like to just appear in the kitchen
Yes.
or in the living room, enjoy the little things. But no, I think tonight is a different approach.
A more polite approach, perhaps some would say. You give a knock on the back door. The lights inside are dim, if any are on. It's very clear that there's an intentional lack of presence, possibly in this house. Maybe to look like there's nobody home at most hours of the night, or most hours of the day as well. But eventually, what stands before you is Jade. However, she's dressed a little casually, much like yourself tonight, actually. Usually she's wearing something a little bit formal. Usually some kind of dress that's a solid color with the bob of her hair just kind of nestled against a collar of some kind. But no, today she's dressed in jeans and a hoodie with some sneakers. Maybe she's going out. Maybe she's got things on her mind. But based on her appearance, something's a little weird. But also she looks at you like something's a little weird too, because she wasn't expecting you to knock.
Miss Kaufman, ever a pleasure. Mind if I come in?
Shrink, always a pleasure. And yes, come in, she says, kind of then giving a practiced motion of enter thou.
I step in and start to end up making my way first and foremost to the kitchen. I, unprompted, go under the sink, where she keeps garbage bags, and most people do, and it's not like this is a house I'm unfamiliar with. Hell, I have this place pretty much documented from top to bottom, but I do have a tendency to just show up, so it shouldn't be a shock.
That wonderful eidetic memory of yours.
And I proceed to strip out a garbage bag, and I start to peel it apart as I walk into the living room. I imagine she's observing me cautiously as I place it down on the couch, as though to offer myself a seat where I don't have to end up worrying about destroying the furniture, so to speak. Yes, as I sit down, I'm sure there's some unusual sounds, that little bit of a wet splat indicating something below my clothing isn't exactly normal at this current rate. Pulling down my hood. Has to be polite. I'm sure she can end up seeing it, that portion of jawbone sticking out of my head, the side of my cheek, the mashed up collarbone, the fact that most of my fingers are moving but partially broken.
You look horrid. Which is
And
unusual for you.
You look dazzling.
Huh.
And I'm sorry for my sorry state of affairs, Miss Kaufman. I'm been rather busy.
I
And
imagine.
it seems every... Go ahead.
Oh, I said I imagine, given how much time feeding takes these nights.
Don't worry, I'm not about to end up eating somebody and leaving a body. Not the reason I'm here, anyway.
Well, you are a little worse for wear. I worry if you've been eating it all. Is that something I should be concerned about?
For your own safety, of course.
Of course.
No, I'm here on business. You know, that thing that you blue bloods love.
Of course. To what do I owe the pleasure?
Well, we'll do business first, then the formalities. Business first. Dr. Olson.
Yes.
Have you managed to follow through on your little excursion?
I've been keeping an eye on him. And those he's been seen with. Following rumors.
And I would imagine those lead right to our dear Primogen.
Well, it hasn't gotten that far yet, I don't think. But as far as what Olson's previous profession might be, I can imagine that would be a logical conclusion, as blood trade is highly sought after. And so far as I understand, the rumors have it that Keller controls a lot of the blood trade, including blood clinics.
That's part of it.
He's also been seen with some interesting individuals, one of which was a woman. I believe Adner, Abscess, something, her name.
Kindred.
Kind, as far as I know.
Abner. Well, that's a good start.
She's been sniffing around in places where she shouldn't, as much as Olson has, but they haven't drawn any conclusions, so far as I know. As long as we keep the masquerade under wraps, they have no reason to suspect otherwise.
True.
But they have been seen together, so...
Where have they been seen together?
Not that there's a whole lot of other medical facilities in this particular area, but things like CVS, Walgreens, supply stores, places where they could potentially pick up supplies.
How are you tracking them? For my own edification.
I've got people.
Know where they might be meeting up tonight?
Tonight, I don't have a scheduled meeting. I was going out feeding tonight. If you must know. And since that has been taking a rather long period of time and nights have been growing shorter as the spring has been turning into summer, you can imagine that I have planned my whole day for this. Should I be successful earlier than expected, then perhaps I shall indulge in some much-needed hobbies.
I'd like to wits insight.
Go for it.
I have a feeling. Now, she's dressed in jogging shoes. This means that she's a runner.
Mm-hmm.
This also tells me where she's probably feeding.
Potentially.
But I'm also getting the impression that what she's doing is more athletic in mind. I'm suspecting potential alley cat, which would not have been my first thought, but it might be alley cat, might be an HOA situation. Who knows? But I'm trying to see what I can read off of.
Ooh,
4 successes.
that's pretty good. She does have a rather, very athletic build to her, and so it's safe to assume that she's done a lot of jogging in general, that this particular outfit isn't new either. It looks like it is well worn. It is very much an outfit that she obviously feels very comfortable. You see that she does feel very comfortable in this attire right now, as much as she's trying to hide it, that anything is out of the ordinary. So a runner in life maybe still does so. Maybe she does run for fun. But as far as whether that ties into her feeding, it is a logical conclusion. It is quite possible that she does feed while she goes running. Whether you can actually nail down the precise way in which she does so, you would probably have to follow her to find out, but
Well,
at the very least, it looks like she does the running part on the regular basis anyway.
would you like some assistance then, Miss Kaufman? After all, you say it yourself. It's hard to feed in this domain for most. Means that a little bit of assistance, one hand washes the other.
You also look worse for wear than I do, so perhaps the other way around should be in order. Perhaps I should plan to help you.
Wouldn't have you distracted. Which, I guess, leads us into the personal part of this conversation. You managed to end up getting some air.
Mm-hmm.
Managed to at least secure your haven for a bit. Stability, I think, is pretty high up there in the Blue Bloods list, isn't it?
I think I have a Mr. Tenebris to thank for that.
Hilarious.
Or was it something else?
Wow. Wouldn't know. Though I'll get to the bottom of that soon enough. The big thing I'm more curious on is the idea that you're... He looks up and down.
I wasn't expecting company.
No, I imagine not. But you're more relaxed. Must be hard to end up living up to the Blue Blood expectations. After all, I have to end up dealing with your counterpart, shall I politely say, in the form of my coteries' newest acquisition, Mr. Resner.
Ah, yes. Dorian Resner.
a figure that you have certainly illustrated a, shall I say, certain disdain for. It's kind of adorable, really. I don't often get the idea of venture infighting, but I suppose that we don't get along with all our relatives.
No. Certainly a cousin I do not get along with personally. On a business front, if we're talking strictly business, then there is some headway to be made there. But as far as any personal endeavors, I will admit, he and I see very differently when it comes to the personal. Cut from the same cloth, two sides of a very different coin.
Now, how's that? I mean,
Well, he's successful.
and that perturbs you in a way.
We're both cut from sires who don't exactly have a good reputation in this city.
Well, Liliana ended up managing to end up making a bit of a splash in Elysium last time I checked. So.
Yes, but she also hasn't been in the picture since before that Elysium for at the least 50 years. And then all of a sudden she gets granted the permission to sire an individual, and on top of that, a millionaire? A millionaire who has free reign to show off his wealth in this domain by purchasing apartment buildings and rushing construction. And yes, perhaps I'm a little bitter.
Miss Kaufman, you are a, shall I say, a pain in my ass and a poor specimen of a blue blood in your current state. But
Right now, I'm not attempting to be a blue blood.
and that's the first time you ended up laying it down, didn't it?
I figure why not? I don't have to dress up for you.
No, I've seen the goods, and I'm not impressed. Besides, the one thing we can do is be honest with each other.
That's always
See,
what I've expected.
Mr. Resner is trying to end up leveraging his millions and his contacts in order to buy the populace, shall we say.
Aha.
Understandably so, we exist in a powder keg. And he's trying to end up figuring out how to do something about it. You, on the other hand, are biding your time. But I think you see the long game. One thing I ended up learning, I took a history class once.
Mm-hmm.
Things come in cycles. Things change over time, but the rules stay the same. You keep your head down, find the little scraps that you can, and you'd be surprised what you can do on a long enough timeline.
Good things come to he who waits.
Well,
I've
shoddy
had
is
to-
the packet. Go ahead.
I have had to recite that particular adage many times in recent nights. In fact, most of my existence. Patience is a
So-
virtue.
What if I were to tell you that right now, damage packaging aside, I'm probably the best thing that's going to happen to you in the next 10 years?
I think you've made that abundantly clear. even if we don't see eye to eye.
Coffin, you have a tendency to not want to rock the boat. We need more of that around here.
Stability. Pillars of society. I think I see what you're getting at.
Resner's trying to end up dealing with the thin blood populace, trying to end up making sure that they don't get too rattled. I think that part is blatantly obvious, even to someone like you.
He has a bleeding heart.
Not yet. Working on it.
His philanthropy is well known in venture circles. He rarely ever does anything for a profit. Where he gets his millions, that's yet to be seen.
I can definitely understand that. So,
He's a club owner, but doesn't do much of anything else. Does he invest in stocks? Nobody knows. I doubt even his sire knows to the true extent of what his influence in the financial market is.
you, on the other hand, live a quaint little life in a small little home.
Trying not to
And
make
that-
waves.
Trying not to make waves.
See, the
But
kinds
you
of...
want to.
Well,
Go ahead.
a wave every now and again to shake things up in my favor would be nice from time to time. But the kinds of waves that Dorian's making is going to make it very evident to said Dr. Olson and Abscess, whatever her name is. Make it evident that they should be looking at him. I see the writing on the wall. He's going to get discovered by them, and when he does, his accounts are going to get locked, and he'll be worthless as far as his influence is concerned.
And that's where you come in, isn't it?
If somebody knew how to unlock accounts.
Unlock accounts, try and end up...
Plausible deniability, cover up any direct influence that he might have financially in those prospects of his, as I think he might have been sloppy.
So, here's the question. Do you want to get ahead of the game? Or do you want to play the game? You can get ahead on this. I imagine a woman of your stature can easily end up getting ahead of it all, darling. You can easily end up probably getting the situation to end up coming out in your favor. But I think
It helps that I'm an accountant.
it does. But I also think that that's not enough for you.
When is anything ever enough for a Ventru? Ambitious we may be, but also patient.
Slow and steady.
Mm.
So what do you want, Miss Kaufman?
What do I want? You've asked me that at least once before.
And you didn't give me an answer then either. You dodged the question.
Hmm.
I suspect you might do it again, but doesn't hurt to ask. Besides, it stops the whole skullduggery thing that I know you absolutely hate when I suddenly show up unannounced. Doing the skullduggery thing.
Of course. So, I tell you what I want. What does that mean for you?
I tell you something you don't know.
And you know lots of things that I don't, I'm sure. Relevant to my situation?
Very.
I want Dorian Resner to burn. He took everything from me.
How exactly did he take everything from you? Wait, is he the reason your sire actually went to the hereafter?
My sire met his final death in the streets of Arlington.
Mm-hmm. So the story goes. And he was your everything. It's the reason you keep this house up. A reminder of where you come from. So what did he take from you?
My portfolio.
Accountant. Okay.
Very familiar with those files.
Dr. Olson might be running across a little thing in the very near future. Not all of the blood that he's been tracking is of kind, whether he knows it or not. Due to a particular taste of someone in court.
Dr. Olson would be directly tied to a kindred of some kind in that way?
Not yet. But one of two things are possible. Either he is going to be scooped up, due to his background, by our dearest Primogen, who is offering far more than typo negative on the menu, I assure you. Or he's going to end up getting completely swallowed up by the Second Inquisition. In which case he's going to discover that more than type AB is on the menu.
That part I've been actively making sure that doesn't happen.
So you've been more than a passive observer.
Like I said, I'm familiar with records.
Then you should also know this. Arlington isn't a dumping ground for wayward kindred. That's the cover.
Cover.
Mm-hmm.
For what?
When you see it as a quarantine of misbegotten kindred. It's not. What it is a menu.
Menu. In the vein of a dinner menu.
Take your pick. Blue blood, Nosferatu, Bruja if you're feeling saucy, Malkavian if you need a little bit of spice, Thin blood if you're feeling like something bland like running eggs.
That paints a very interesting image in my mind.
That's
For
its
whom?
purpose. That's as far as I'm willing to go. At least right
But there
now.
is someone who does desire a menu of kindred.
Just one.
I've heard of leeches, self-cannibalistic vampires. Rarely does anyone actually come out and say that they are such. It's a little on the taboo.
Little on the taboo. It's the kind of thing that gets you executed in front of the prince.
Well, should you get caught.
Yeah.
Or take it too far.
So, with that in mind, you're one of only 3 people in this entire domain who knows it. And nobody has plausible deniability, Miss Kaufman. But it explains the stakes.
And with this many kindred in the domain, must be someone important. Otherwise, why keep your mouth shut?
I knew I liked you for a reason. That's right. But that reframes the game for you.
Menu item. And so is Dorian and you. And every other kindred in this domain.
That's right.
And Keller
including yours
oversees
truly,
it
and
all.
I am. Yep. And not only does Keller oversee it all, but I'm sure you can come to a few conclusions yourself.
I know where my mind is wanting to go. Whether that's
where's
the
it
actual
wanting?
truth remains to be seen. Again, not jumping in front of the cart before the horse. No one's been able to prove anything about Keller's dealings when it comes to his own personal business at that hospital. Shifty. Never anything solid, never anything confirmed.
But something tells me you never took a crack at it.
Why would I? It would mean my head.
It would.
Should I get discovered? I'm good. I'm not perfect.
No, I never thought I'd hear a blue blood say that.
I'm a long way from perfect. I'm too young to be perfect. And anyone who thinks themselves otherwise is arrogant and letting their arrogance get away with them.
Well, it's like the old saying, it goes, you're either perfect or you're not me.
Sounds like something you would say.
So, with that in mind, I wanted to drop that little tidbit to you. Because you want to be ahead of the curve. Now, you're in the lead of the race.
And why would you do that for me?
So who said it was for you?
Well, you either want me to be ahead of the race because that means I'm in line with you, or that means you want my help.
Maybe I just want you first on the menu. Yeah, top billing item.
Oh, there's that. But you've never been a very good liar.
Honey, I am a fabulous liar when I have to be. But the truth is far more interesting.
Right.
So let's talk about truth. You're going out to feed. Want help?
I could use a lookout. A jogging buddy. In case things were to go south.
I can do that.
Question is,
Duh.
do you need it in return?
No.
I won't let this particular boon go unpaid.
This is not a boon.
Then what is it? An
When you
attempt
got
at some
something-
goodness in your heart.
Please. Even you're not that delusional.
Well, there's something left.
Maybe.
Maybe I have to play at that.
Don't try and get to my better self. You're already looking at it. And my fine ass will end up continuing to end up marching right along the sands of time till, well, the sun fails to rise one last time.
That
So.
is, once you make sure that that ass is actually as full as it should be.
Honey,
You're a little flat.
I work out. The nerve!
I
but-
can tell you're missing chunks.
That's right. Because while everybody else is preening, everybody else is shifting and trying and doing it, I'm the only one who's actively trying to end up getting anything done. Something I think you can appreciate.
Which is why I ask, do you want assistance in return?
No.
Not as a boon, but because I would hate to see that sorry ass go up in the sunlight before it's time. Same as you would do for me.
Well, I just figure if at any point you're going to end up hitting Ash, I want to be the one to do it. And as far as I'm concerned, anybody else getting in the way is a detestable outcome for me.
I tend to agree.
So, because of that, I am going to end up assisting you in feeding. How you want to end up hitting me back in that regard? Well, let's just say that this is a point of charity.
Then I will consider it
Obviously.
a point of charity, and aim to do such in return.
And I think that is about where I am going to assist feeding. If you want to make her a roll, or do you just want to end up playing it off, that's all good. I don't see anything in particular making that as more of a scene. Unless you have something in mind.
We're gonna make it a simple high or low.
We'll do high. High clan high because we're rooting for the Ventru for once.
Because we're rooting for the Ventru.
Couldn't get any lower than that. I suck at this.
Yeah, perhaps your feeding types just don't match up. What she does and what you do are maybe very drastically different. And your assistance, sadly, is not much of an assistance at all. Does not speed up the
Sadly.
process, so she probably will be spending the rest of her night pursuing that endeavor.
Yeah,
But you have other things on your plate.
I do. I did mention charity, after all.
You did indeed. But for now, we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we will see what's up with Sister Charity. So, we shall be right back, everybody. Welcome back, everyone, to Blood and Iron, Dead Man's Hand. A solo session with our lovely Shriek, who is doing, quite literally, very solo operative sort of things. Just came back from a talk with Jade Kaufman, a tenuous rival at best, a full-on malicious enemy at worst, though she would never be so brazen as to perhaps let that slip. A tenuous relationship is probably the best that they could hope for in this moment, because another member of the coterie that has been a recent addition is Dorian Resner, whom she also has a tenuous relationship with. But after trading some information and getting a bit of a lay of the land when it comes to the Dr. Olson, who they have been tailing for some time now, Shriek spent some time assisting Jade with her hunt for the evening, but it seems that the hour or so that Shriek himself would be able to dedicate to the endeavor before moving on to other things sadly came up fruitless. And thus Jade, on her own, would be pursuing feeding on her own. Perhaps the styles in which Shriek and Jade are just too opposite that they can't really gel together and be successful. But as stated before, Shriek does have other things that he is getting to tonight, including, well, as he would put it, an act of charity. Going to see Sister Charity, the so-named kindred of Zumisi descent. And so, Shriek, were you doing anything prior to meeting with the lovely sister, or were you going straight there from Jade's little...
I'm going straight there.
Straight
Sense
there.
making everybody, no sense here making everybody wait.
No
Though,
sense in causing worry.
well, not yet anyway. Give it a minute.
Maybe. You find your way towards the little church, little secluded place. Probably only holds a fellowship of 30 at top capacity when it comes to seating. It's not exactly the biggest of churches, but it's a little slice of heaven, might say, as the exterior has the typical trappings of a Catholic church. Solid white outside, stained glass windows. The upon entry, the crucifix at the back of the church, the church dais, and as such, you would see that Sister Charity is doing her usual routine of tidying up some things. Seems to be doing a little bit of busy work. Maybe waiting for those who would find the honey trap and maybe even find it as a feeding method herself. You're not entirely sure how it is that she goes about these things.
No, let's be real. She's a bit of a mystery in that regard. I have my theories, but, well,
You have a lot of theories regarding her. She is very much a mystery to you.
most important one is solved, though. She owes me. And that is
Several times over, in fact.
several times over. Life boon is a hell of a thing. Proper kindred society, when you owe somebody your life, your very existence, and they've put theirs on the line for it, reneging on a request is seen in a very poor light.
Of course.
And
should have get back to the harpy. My goodness. These things would be paraded and, well, berated in front of the entirety of the court.
Sister Charity, on the other hand, has a skill set. A skill set that I may need to use in the very near future. But that's not the core reason why I'm here.
Why are you here, Shrink?
The twins. Fact of the matter is that, well, Jordan seems to be taking a little bit of a downturn lately, trying to feed Julie. And because of that, he has lost a sense of self, coming across not only as cold and callous, but more behaving like, well, a shark than a human being.
One could say the same about you.
Yeah, but I'm gonna make it look good.
You have a fabulousness about yourself that maybe she hadn't really delved into before sinking as low as she has. The Toreador tend to be that way, after all.
It's all about playing true to my word. That's it. I don't want to throw away a tool so quickly.
Until it becomes dull and unusable.
Well, Jordan's starting to make that the case. But hate to break up a match set. Should have been embraced Toreador. But as I end up approaching the church, I start to end up looking for the dear sister. It's late, but late night communions are a thing with the vampire churches. Honestly, I'm surprised that this isn't one of the first places the Second Inquisition looks, but maybe they already have. Gave it a clear bill of health. I mean, can't presume too much, but if Charity did what our dear Primogen accused them of, that implies a very important set of abilities. One that I can use.
Indeed. But the fact of the matter is, would she admit to it? So, upon walking in, you do see that she is doing her due diligence in keeping the sanctuary tidy. Dusting. It looks like she's pulled out of a rag and has started to clean things with what smells like lemon wood cleaner.
That classic smell. I make it a point to end up approaching Sister Charity. I imagine I look like one of the many dispossessed that would end up wandering in here. It's not until I probably raise my voice that I get her attention. Good evening, sister.
Shriek. Welcome.
Is it possible? Thank you. Would we be able to talk? I have some sins to confess.
We can talk in private, yes.
Oh,
Normally, confession is held with the priest, but
I think you'll be a little bit more understanding.
quite possibly. And she leads you and gestures over towards a door that leads into the back of the sanctuary, where there's a small hallway with a couple of offices that she leads you into one, and there's a desk with papers kind of neatly stacked on it, with two chairs on one side and uh, the other the other side having a single chair. And she gestures towards the pair of chairs for you to seat in the one you would like to sit in, and she takes the other on the other side of the desk.
I appreciate the fact you're making time for me on such short notice, Sister Charity.
Very lucky that I am very open this evening.
Well, I imagine with the conflict involving our primogen, that would have been an issue. Glad
In-
to know I can help.
Intentionally staying from underfoot. Not venturing very far, as I don't want to step on any toes.
It seems you're not wanting to step on many toes, ends up getting in a lot of hot water. Why is that exactly? I
Well,
mean, you are the quintessential type of kindred that Arlington wants. A person who stays to their own devices, doesn't go out of their way to do stuff, tries to end up living a nice little quiet life, tucked away somewhere where they don't get noticed too much. You attract a lot of attention for somebody who kind of stays on the DL.
that is a recent change. A forced change of habits, as one would say.
What changed?
I used to be very social.
And now that you're not, you're attracting attention.
No, because I was very social, I attracted a lot of attention already. A lot of the issues that our dear Scourge, our dear Dr. Keller, and possibly many others have an issue with me about is because of something rather grim about my past.
And what would that be?
Are you sure you want to know?
Honey, I make it a deal of knowing. And after all the stuff I've been through, he pulls his hood down, revealing a lot of the wounds that he's still nursing. I think that's the least I can at least figure out at this point is how did I get tangled up in this mess?
I believe you got tangled up into this mess by choice.
I got tangled up into this mess because a individual in the Arlington domain ended
Was
up
scheduled for
getting.
execution and you interrupted.
That's right. As my want to do.
Which the Scourge would say was a warranted execution, given that my sire was Sabat. A risk,
Fantastic.
much like every other kindred in this domain.
Well, good. Then knowing exactly, keeping an eye on you was probably the best thing I could have done. Your sire Sabat. Okay.
And they have met their final death already.
And you haven't. Let's try and keep it that way. Can we? I know that I'd love to end up getting freaky with a nun at some point, and if only end up checking that one off the bucket list.
I would have never struck you as the type.
Deviancy is a core delight of my experience in that regard. Besides, as far as I understand it, you can be whatever flavor of ice cream you want to be.
One gives you that impression.
Anna.
Anna.
Mm-hmm. I don't know of many Zamisi out here in Arlington or anywhere in the Camarilla, to be honest. Kind of a rarity for you.
That's true. Most of my kin are independent. Or Sabal.
So when we end up finding out that a Kine was crafted into being a replacement Anna, one that did not survive the encounter, I'm sorry to say.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Was the Primogen right in his accusations? You helped Anna find a way out.
On that account, I have been sworn to secrecy.
So you find yourself in a position where you're between two masters. Right? Let's play it to your game. You can't tell me if you did that to Anna. But you can tell me if you're capable of it.
It is a core discipline of my clan.
And one that you know how to do.
I am not well trained. But I have dabbled before with my own appearance.
Fantastic. Useful ability, that, especially for what's to come.
The kind of transformation that would be required to turn a Kine into a spitting image of another human or kindred would take some incredible skill.
Thankfully, it's not the requirement for what I'm thinking. I just need to know if you can manifest a disguise, a plausible deniability, a useful asset in service to the Camarilla, I'm sure.
Upon myself. As I said, I've dabbled, but that is the extent of my abilities.
Mm-hmm.
I make it a habit not to indulge, as that is the core discipline of my sire. He would change others for the sick satisfaction of his own twisted mind.
That is precisely why I wanted to come to you. That and another question. Little pious thing. My broken mirror, if you will. You operate in a church. One would suspect that would be a way not only of preserving your masquerade, but yourself. Honestly, you don't look like you're that far down the pipeline yet. I'm impressed. Can't say the same for myself. Honestly, I've always been tall, dark, and handsome, but, it's kind of a shame that I'd no longer have to use makeup to get that sunken eye look anymore.
Yes, I have noticed. The very dead-like pallor. Sunken eyes, cheeks, temples, all of it. Kind of desiccating, though you still walk.
I'm so glad somebody noticed. Honestly, it's a new look for me. But that's not the important thing right now. The important thing is somebody else is following a little bit faster, a little bit further.
And you're hoping that I might be able to help.
You either can or you can't. Because go ahead.
What is the ask?
Well, you remember the Toreador twins that I brought around here not too long ago?
Yes, I recall.
The one without the dyed hair is currently falling very quickly, trying to feed the other. The one takes the sins on to the other, if you will. If you have to use that kind of vernacular, honestly, I find it's a little bit too biblical for my taste. But given company, I think it might be appropriate. You, on the other hand, know how to slow it down, or at the very least keep it in mind. She's been dropping like a stone, and I cannot afford to babysit at this point. One of two things are going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Either she's going to meet with the Scourge, and there's going to be nothing I can do about it, nor any particular incentive to do anything about it, because you and I both know that once that last drop goes, Masquerade goes out the window, and nobody's playing around with that.
And their essence is gone forever. What's left of them is gone.
So, do I try and end up preserving somebody's soul to end up keeping them useful, or do I take them out now in order to save the hide of everybody in the domain?
I suppose that is the choice, isn't it?
I wonder if this is how God feels.
God is merciful.
Yeah, heard that one before. But
All he asks is that you admit you're wrong, and he is willing to forgive, even before you have asked.
Yeah, but if I'm also to believe that, I'm also got to believe that this thing in our veins is also from him. Kind of puts us on the chopping block and fast track to the furnace in the best of times.
The Sabbat would say that it is a blessing.
Yeah, but they also have a tendency to deify the world's first murderer. So take that with a grain of salt.
I, on the other hand, believe it to be more of a curse. But we, as kindred, are not beyond redemption.
Do you think that there's a way to end up stopping this from piling on?
At the very least, slow the descent.
Ever
To
dealt with
add
somebody
pieces
who...
back to your soul after you've lost it. I don't know that that's possible.
Isn't that what you're trying to do here?
Yes. I have yet to find out if it's successful.
Okay. Well, that sounds just all fun and dandy. So, that being said, I'm also going to need to end up asking you to get your hands dirty. Keller can't stick around anymore. I think you know that. And you need people who actually have an interest in keeping you around to end up being in a position where they can do that. And he pulls his shirt or his hoodie aside to end up showcasing the mashed collarbone and ribs. I'm starting to run out of pounds of flesh to give on your behalf.
I understand.
So,
And I understand that Keller, given his accusations, would sooner see me dead.
that's right. And so it's in my best interest to end up making sure that he's not allowed to play that game anymore.
How do you plan to do that? He's a primogen. A simple word
Primogen.
into this prince's ear, and the prince could declare this whole domain useless and purge it once more.
Good. But that doesn't serve Keller.
It might serve the better of the city.
True.
The prince has a lot more on his plate than any of us realize.
And what if somebody were to take that off and clear his plate for him?
I don't know that one could. I'm not sure I understand what you're suggesting.
You don't need to understand. God works in mysterious ways, and I like to follow suit. You know,
You
be
tend
as
to
the Lord would imply.
you tend to also want to be in the know before letting God intervene.
True.
You like to know what steps God is making before God makes them.
Ah, to know the mind of God is hubris, I was told. But I'd like to come damn close. So, with that in mind, he pulls out a letter. This needs to go to somebody. And I need you to be discreet on how you get it to them.
I will make the best attempt.
Jake Kaufman is currently investigating said person. You'll find instructions in a second envelope there. And that is going to end up giving you a little bit of an in. Now, while Jade may end up being persuasive, she can't know that this conversation happened, nor can she know the contents of that. You're not to open it.
Understood.
When that happens, well, three things. One, I'm going to need to make sure that you're well and fed. Don't need you running, mucking around. Two, there is a off chance that some things will end up going sideways. Expect that. But third, Keller is going to end up needing a situation report. I don't intend to give that to him. So this stays on the down low. I don't know what you need to end up getting done, but I'd suggest battening down the hatches as soon as you're done. Play it off like you know nothing, but try and end up keeping things going. It's going to get rough for the next little while, but if it all pans out, you shouldn't have to worry about the scourge anytime soon.
She is always looking for a reason. I like to give her as few as possible.
Yeah. I'm about to take you out of her jurisdiction.
Out of the Scourge's jurisdiction, she has purview over the whole city.
So long as the prince permits it.
As well as Fort Worth.
Mm-hmm. But it's not going to be in the prince's best interest to keep the Scourge around here anymore.
Dare I ask why?
No. The less you know, the better. Just know that if everything goes accordingly, and you do your part, and I do mine, it should all work out in the end. God has delivered unto you a miracle, dear sister. Try not to look a gift horse in the mouth, especially when it has fangs.
Then I will do as you ask. Is there anything I can do for you to put you in a better state? As I do owe you.
No. No. I'm a giver, after all, not a taker. I have a reputation to uphold. And when I do come asking, well, it's an exercise in trust. We're about to find out how much we trust each other.
Indeed.
But I have errands to run. And I feel the call of the night. A sweet siren song pulling me ever onward.
There is something you should know.
Really now? Tell me something I don't know.
Your friend Dorian is interested in Thin Bloods, yes?
Seems to be the case. He may be trying to look out for the little tykes.
That is the word on the street, his philanthropist sort of dealings. 2 have been removed from the board.
By who?
I don't know. Their bodies were found in the sewers.
Bodies were found in the sewers. Killed and then dumped in a manhole, or...
Something to that effect, according to my contacts under the city.
Well, then I guess I got 2 more stops to make. My dear, it has been wonderful. Don't forget about the envelopes. And do try and end up showcasing a bit of discretion.
I will deliver them tonight.
You seem awfully confident on that. I like that.
I have nothing else on my plate tonight. As I said, I'm very, very free.
You'll find Jade out jogging. Might be a good time to incidentally run into her for gaining permission you're gonna need. He stands up. Now, I'm gonna head out before I catch fire in this place.
Your deviancy is forgiven.
Lord's not going to need to forgive me for what I've done. He's going to need to figure out how to forgive me for what I'm about to do. With that, he makes his way out.
All right.
There is 2 stops he needs to make. Real quick.
Real fast.
Yep.
Well,
Well, the first one is going to end up being to our local hound.
Ah. Well,
Because right now I just set up the dominoes.
yep. Well, we'll have to come back to that next time because I do want to.
Fair.
Yeah, because it is midnight, and I did say that I was gonna end the session right
Okay.
around that time. So we'll pick up
Dang,
there.
my brain. My brain.
We'll pick up there with Shriek next time. This way, you don't get too far ahead of your fellow coterie mates as far as the nighttime goes. They may want to join you, as I'm sure Dorian has also a conversation he would like to have with our dear hound. So maybe we can combine that tomorrow next time.
Oh,
But thank you very much, Derek, for being the one and only cast member tonight. Special
hey,
solo session.
we doing it here old school.
Yes, reminds us of the good old Urian days.
All right.
But for that sake, you are going to get 2 experience because you are the sole member, so you do not need to compete with anyone for any additional experience.
Sounds great.
Get your 1 for showing up and 1 for everything else.
I think that's perfectly fair. All right.
All
That
right.
being said, thank you everybody for stopping by.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
And shout out to the chat and
We
the
love the
raid
chat.
that ended up coming in by Rolling Head Nomads.
Yes,
And
Rolling
thank you very
Nomads.
much.
And the couple of follows that actually came as a result of that. So we had Symbolic Abjad, or Syllabic Abjad, and Super Wonder who followed today. And
Thank you both.
so, yeah, thanks Rolling Nomads for the raid. You guys are great. Welcome
And
back.
thank you,
Welcome
Coffee,
in.
for running despite all hiccups and torpor that has befallen us all.
Yes, befallen some of our lovely coterie mates. But with that being said, we do have a fellow that we are intending to raid. We will find I believe Maddie is still streaming. If I can check that here, and if so, then our good friend Maddie Morgs over at the Hero Zone is doing Alone in the Dark, sort of solo TTRPGs, and so let's go give him a little bit of love with all of that. So say good night, Derek.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.